here. And today's session, because we just met yesterday, is probably going to be very short. I have marked, I think, just over half of the things that have been submitted so far, and a lot of things have been submitted because early in the course we do have a lot of these sort of micro assignments, things that take maybe 10 minutes to a half an hour, depending on how creative you are and how creative you want to get with your initial projects and initial interactive media pieces. And from what I've seen so far, some are quite simplistic. Some people have put quite a lot of effort into choosing an appropriate theme and then modifying that theme with images and colors to suit their personality, and that's great. What I wanted to discuss today is, because we're going to be continuing on in that vein, is just a couple of sort of general things I've noticed. About the blog pages, the blog pages that I've seen so far. I haven't used this software before. It's relatively intuitive, I think, but at the same point, it's a bit buggy. And I just wanted to go through a couple of the things that I saw that may impact you, and then a couple of things I noticed about student submissions thus far to help us improve this and really get this in a point, or get these blog pages to the point where we can use them as effective portfolio pieces, because that's the entire goal of creating this blog, is that we'll have a place that we can have our our thoughts, opinions, etc. in a public space, and also as a repository or portfolio of the media projects that we are going to be doing in this class, as it's very important as you move to sort of the next levels of building media, to have a personal portfolio, particularly when looking for a job. Again, nobody's going to hire you if you say, yeah, I'm a graphic designer, or I'm a videographer. Okay, no one's going to hire you based on the fact that you told them you're a videographer. You're going to, they're going to expect you to say, oh, okay, well, email me your portfolio, or drop off a DVD or Blu-ray or USB with your portfolio. And let's see what you got. Let's see if you're any good, and let's see if your style and skills match what we're looking for. So the portfolio process is extremely important, particularly in this class. And at this point in education, there's been a focus on collection of evidence and collection of skills, and marketing, for lack of a better word, of your skills in a bunch of different classes. So that the term portfolio and the idea of a portfolio probably isn't that foreign to you at that point, but I'm telling you, in this industry, it is extremely important if you're going to move to the next step. So I want to make sure that these Edublogs are a good reflection of your interest areas, your skills and abilities, and also your communication skills, essentially, not just this communication through the projects, but your communication as a human being, and your interpretation of media and media events and culture and whatnot, because that's an important part of the course. It's not just the message we send, or the medium that we use to send that message. It's, do you understand the communication process? Do you understand the encoding process and the decoding process, and how a good project or something that's interesting to one group may not be applicable at all to another group, because of demographics and people's interests and whatnot. For instance, if I could make the world's best video, the world's best commercial for a TV commercial for a golf course, and it could be extremely well done, and it could be extremely influential for my target audience, but my mom's not a golfer. If she saw this wonderful media piece about a golf course, she doesn't care anyway, because she's not a golfer. So whether or not your media is built technically and with the right message, and is built well, you need to accept that it might not necessarily work for everybody. In fact, it'll never work for everybody, and we can see that just by thinking about movies. There's movies that you probably love and have a very close personal connection, and you feel like the director and the actors and everybody involved just nailed it, and it's one of your favorites. Yet somebody else might hate that movie. Just, I hate that. It just doesn't work for me. I hate the acting. I hate that. Blah, blah, blah. Like, there's no accounting for tastes, right? So your media, you have to understand who your target audience is, and you have to understand how to construct that message, and how to choose an appropriate medium, and how to complete the production and post-production and pre-production processes for that target audience. You always keep the target audience at the forefront, because those are the people that you want to watch, listen to, interact with your media projects. And if you miss the mark with your target audience, essentially it's just kind of floating there in cyberspace, and is useless to nobody, to everybody except for you. So we always want to keep our target audience in mind when we're building projects. And in doing so, you have to understand, cultural repercussions of your portrayal of characters and situations in media, and you got to pay attention to culture and to potential hot topic items, to racism, to discrimination, to oppression, and things like that. We're a global society now. We're not kind of trapped in our own little bubbles. The advent and proliferation of the internet has brought us into a space where, like it or not, we operate on a global level. We have the ability to communicate with people all over the world, and it's not going away. So we should be prepared for that, and we need to incorporate that into the way that we build our media. So here's a couple of things I noticed specifically about this first, the first 4 or 5 assignments regarding our blogs. And that is, one thing is that when you pick a theme, and I tried several of them, when you pick a theme, the options that you have in this area are based upon the individual theme you pick. So they're not always going to be the same. I mean, most of them are on everyone. There's colors on everyone, I believe. There's, for most of them, there's a header image and the title and the subtitle. But there may be more or less widgets and sort of opportunities to modify the content and the layout in this area depending on which theme you picked. So I picked that, I can't remember what the theme was called, 16 something or other. But if I pick a different theme, I'll just pick the one right next to it, and I do a live preview of it with my content. This one appears to have pretty similar. I think here's another. So this featured content section is available on this theme, but it wasn't available on my last theme. So not everybody's going to have the same thematic options and options to add tools and menus as every other theme. So you need to be aware of that. If you feel like there's a shortcoming in the theme that you picked and the layout that you picked as we move forward and are adding new things, you may want to choose a different theme. And yes, you may have to redesign, you may have to change some of the colors and do some, some of the customization that you've done before. But by and large, it will take your content and jam it into the new theme and try to make it populate in a very similar way. So ideally you could just click, in a couple of clicks, you could completely change the way that your I'm going to call it a site. It's a blog, but I'm going to call it a website because essentially we're using it as both a blog and a website. So you can, with a couple of clicks, you can change the theme of your website, and all your content's still there, and images and pages and posts and whatnot. It'll look different, but ideally, if you change themes, you don't have to do a whole lot of customization and redesign work, and you might have access to a few more features. Worst case scenario, you pick, if you're changing themes, you try to pick something that maybe doesn't match up with your content very well, and you have to change a whole lot of other stuff. So maybe I don't like this color. I don't like the font that this uses. So I would have to go back into all these areas and change the colors. Most people are trying to select themes that are relatively simplistic and straightforward. And something I noticed in quite a few of the one thing I noticed in quite a few of the comments that I got, because starting with the assignment 2, I believe, I asked for some justification of why you picked the theme and why you picked the widgets and the tools and the menus that you use. And what was popping up quite frequently was, I chose this theme because it's simple and it's easy to navigate, and I don't want it to be cluttered and to have people have trouble navigating their way through the site or finding menus and things to click on. And I'm like, that is always the best method. I mean, I think we can all agree that whether you like the company or not, the Google Home search page is an example of simplicity at its best. I'm just going to go to Google. So we look at our Google sort of main search page. I I first heard of Google in like 1998 or 1999, and it hasn't changed much. It hasn't changed much since then. It's about as simple as you can get. There's lots of white space. It's abundantly clear what it's for. There's a big search box in the middle with a little magnifying glass. And sure, the themes and the celebrations and whatnot change, and they have little things that they offer every now and then. And there is some other navigation, right, about to the Google Store. And then if you're signed into Google, which I probably should be, you have access to your Google Docs and Drive and all the other stuff. But when you go to the main page for a company that's worth however many $1 billion, hundreds of billions of dollars, their web page is pretty much as simple as it can get. Bunch of white space, drawing your eyes to the middle, and what's in the middle? The thing that they are known for, the thing that they want to do better than anybody in the world, and that is provide an opportunity for you to find what you're looking for, to find accurate information, to find relevant information, and to find it as instantaneously as possible without having to have you click around anywhere else. So Google is, as good as anyone at this. They've got enough money that they could hire all sorts of designers and media specialists, and they could clutter this thing up with all sorts of awesome looking CGI and sort of newfangled multimedia products and whatnot. But they intentionally choose not to, because this is what they do. They want it to be simple, and they want everything to have they want the user experience to be as straightforward as possible. So that's a lesson that we can learn from. At the same time, you have to consider, what is your goal? Google's goal, at least for the search page, is to get you to a list of results that are accurate and relevant to what you want as quickly as possible. So that's their goal, and that's why this extremely simple layout works very well for them. However, our goals are not the same as Google's goals. We are looking for an opportunity to show off our skills and demonstrate our learning in the art of communication media. So we are going to have a bit more of a design focus on ours, and the goal is going to be to find a good balance point between getting the theme, the idea, the essence of you as a depending on how you want to go, of a person or as a media producer, and make it clear that this is your page, this is what you're interested in, this is your goals, and the whole purpose of me putting this up here is so that you learn a bit more about me, and then I can show off my skills. And if you pick something that's too simplistic and too bare bones, it doesn't really sell you as an effective communicator. So for some of you who chose extremely simple blogs with very few design effects, and you did it intentionally because you want it to be simple and straightforward, that's fine. But I would also encourage you to stretch a little bit to try and find the balance. Because if I'm looking for somebody with a background, let's say I'm looking for somebody with a background in communication media, interactive media, something like that, and I come across a page that's just, mostly white with a little, plain text at the top and some plain text on the side, my first thought is going to be, well, that's not very interesting. I'll go find somebody else who's got a site that's both thematic and sells them, and also demonstrates very clearly that they are good at design and good at communicating a message and providing me with evidence of what it is that I'm looking for as an employer. And I'm not saying I've aced this or anything, but I'm saying here's a couple things that you may want to consider. For instance, up here, there's a tagline that normally goes here, and it's in the site identity. Again, your access to these menus may have slightly different content, but in mine, you have the opportunity to put a site title and a tagline. And I noticed that a lot of people didn't replace the tagline. They just picked a theme, and then they left whatever was up there. Well, I played around with this for a bit. You remember yesterday's session, and I said, because the thematic image I selected was, because the thematic image I selected has a lot of different colors in it, it's difficult for me to contrast the text, given the options that I have in Edublogs, so that it doesn't get lost in either the dark or the light areas. And when I was changing the colors of this, I'd have it working nicely for the part within the darker camera, but then it would kind of fade out in the middle here, and vice versa. If I went light versus dark or whatever, I played with a bunch of different colors. And when I did manage to find a color or two that kind of worked with both the light and the dark backgrounds, I thought those colors didn't go well with the rest of the website. They weren't consistent. They weren't part of the same sort of color family and theme. And I thought, even though I could read it up there, it wasn't particularly attractive. So I said to myself, okay, well, I've got to find a better way of doing this because that's just not looking good to me. So what I did was I decided to actually get rid of these two things and to create it. Sorry, I'm clicking on the wrong screen here. And in getting rid of these two things, okay, what I wanted to do is say, okay, instead of using the built-in thing there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my original image and I'm going to do a couple things to it. And I did it in Photoshop, but I mean, if you're interested in moving further in communication media and whatnot, you're going to have to use a variety of different tools. My solution to this problem, and it's not necessarily your problem or anybody else's problem, this is just a problem that I had with mine. My solution to this was to take my original image and screen it back a little bit, meaning I just made it a little bit less opaque. So a bit more see-through, I guess, and what's behind the website is white. So I made it a bit more see-through, so it basically made it a little bit lighter. And then I used some of the font and FX tools in Photoshop to build what I felt was an easier to read title bar and subtitle bar, as well as picking a color that I think sort of is in the same warm family as the other stuff. If you take graphic art or graphic design, you'll learn about color families and warm colors and cool colors and whatnot. And I don't expect you to know that, but I felt that the yellowish sort of earth warmy tones would work better with what's going on in the background here and with the camera. So I picked this sort of goldy yellow with a black stroke, which is an outline of the letter, and a little bit of a shadow behind it, because I thought that that's a reasonably modern and attractive font that kind of works for me. So instead of using what was built in, knowing that I can replace the image in the background here, which a lot of your themes have access to, you don't have to use the default image. In fact, I strongly encourage you not to use the default image. I strongly encourage you to pick something that represents your goals, interests, and themes in the theme of the website and replace it. And that might take a little searching for images that you've either taken or images that, open source images that you find attractive that are available on the web. But you need to be tailoring this thing to be an extension of your personality, not just it's an assignment. So I did I just picked the first one that I thought looked okay and then went with it. You do need to take a little bit more pride in your work. And the way I've got it set up right now, people are more or less getting, full marks because by the very definition of the assignment, yes, you picked the theme. Yes, you picked some widgets. Yes, you did that. So I didn't feel right deducting any marks, but I did often put in the feedback area that you might want to consider doing this, or you might want to consider adding an image here or changing a menu item or whatnot, because I ultimately want to build this so that at the end of the course, you don't look at it and go, oh man, I wish I'd spent more time in the beginning making this, usable and pretty, because now it's got all this media stuff in it and it's not looking or working the way I want it to. So that's why I want to make sure that we're spending some time in the beginning to kind of dial these things in. So that was one of the things that I noticed, and one of the things I changed is using this header image and just some outside software. And you don't have to be a Photoshop expert. You don't have to use Photoshop. You can do it in a bunch of different programs, or you can not do it at all. This was an option for me, and this was something that I felt would make the site look better. So I took advantage of it and changed that header image. I also, a lot of the themes have a navigation bar built in. If you look over here, it's should be menu, I think. And it gives you options for what kind of menu do you have. Is it going to be a horizontal menu that goes this way? And like menu being navigation to other pages or posts on your website. So, there's options to have it horizontal or vertical or placed on the right or placed on the left. And you can play around with all that. I'm a fan of simple navigation, horizontal at the top where people are used to seeing it, or down, typically down the left side of the internet or left side of the page because people tend to read left or right. So what I did was I replaced the sample page menu that was there and put in 2 pages of my own, one of which is interactive media, the other of which is video projects, and I might put audio projects in here, maybe an about me or something like that. So I just created 2 kind of placeholder pages. Didn't take me very long at all. And so this is my interactive media page, and there's really nothing on it. It's just an example of a page, and I think the video projects page is probably the same thing. I put a couple of images. I put a gallery in here. One of my images is clearly broken. It's not appearing. So I might have accidentally deleted that image or something like that. I have to go back in and add it. But I created a couple pages so that it's I'm starting to set it up for my portfolio because I know I'm going to have some interactive media. I mean, this is one of them. I know I'm going to have some video projects. I know I'm going to have some audio projects and other things like that. So you should start thinking about, okay, I'm going to need some pages on this for portfolio or that sort of thing. How can I make this look good and work well? One thing I noticed right away is I don't have a home button. So now that I'm on the interactive media page, how do I get back to my home page? And there isn't anything in here that's particularly intuitive for how you click back to your sort of main page. So that would be something that I would identify right away and say, oh man, I need some way to get back home. So if I look at my menu, I'm customizing the menu. I don't want to customize the location. I just want to play with this, and maybe I want to add an item for a custom link to my home page. And I added in a whole bunch of duplicate stuff for some reason, and then I'm just going to drag that to the top because usually you're going to want your home page link at the front of the menu. So whatever, that took like 20 seconds, right? I went into the menu, I said, oh hey, there's a home link there, and I'll throw that in, and then when I publish it, now if I go to a different page, audio editing, video editing, I have an option to get back to my home page with one click, whereas before I was like, oh man, I literally have to use the back button or go up to the menu bar, to the address menu to get back to my home page. Not very intuitive. So that was a quick fix, something that I decided just from playing around. I mean, you've been using websites your entire life, and just by sheer volume of time you've spent going through the web and navigating through different sites, you probably have a pretty good idea of what your instincts are when you're on a website, and you should approach your own website in the same manner. You should play with it. You should go in and say, okay, I'm looking for my audio project page. Can I get to it quickly? Okay, I'm at my audio projects page. Can I get to other pages right away that are important? And it's probably not important to link to every single page and post in your menu, because then it's going to get long and cumbersome, and it's going to be cluttered, right? So again, you're trying to find that balance of simplicity where it's pretty and it represents you as a person and your interests and what you want to do in this class, but also is simple enough for a lay person, just a normal person, to click into your website and intuitively know, okay, well, that's where their interactive media is going to be. That's where their video projects are going to be. Now that I'm done the video projects, I want to go back home and maybe check out something else. And then certain things are always on every page, like my posts and comments and things like that. Because it's essentially, as a primarily a blogging website, that's deemed to be incredibly important. Now, I'm sure I could customize it over here somewhere if I wanted to change where this menu is or change which items appear all the time, add, remove, and some of you have already have played with that stuff a bunch, and that's great. But the idea is that you've got to make this pretty, and you've also got pretty or electric, or whatever word or theme you want to use for what's going to represent you as a person and what you want to do in this class. And your motivations are going to be all over the place, and the things that you are interested in life are going to be all over the place. So I expect to get variety, but I also expect it to be clear when I go to the website, what is your area of interest? What are your goals? Can I navigate this? Is it cluttered? Is it too simplistic? Does it include all of the elements that we're going to need? Does it include all of the marketing, basically, items that are going to represent you and your abilities to the max? To the max. So this is how I've started. This is not how I'm going to end mine, but already I've made some significant changes to my sort of default template in order to more accurately represent the direction that I want to take this program. I'm not just going to take a default template and say, okay, I'm just going to throw my content in there and hope somebody sees it. That's not effective interactive marketing or communication, and we need to be aware of that, and always keeping the target audience in mind. So I've tried to find a balance between simplicity and some intuitive navigation in places where people are used to seeing them, and I may continue to play with colors. Maybe this home link, maybe it doesn't pop out the way I want it to, so maybe I want to change the colors or change the color of the bar. There's a lot of things you can change within these themes, within these templates, but the exact level of what you can adjust or what you configure is going to be dependent on the theme you pick. So just keep that in mind when you're playing around with your themes and setting these things up. And again, it is relatively simple to change it early in the process. It probably gets more difficult to change it later. With regard to bugs, there are some bugs in this system. For instance, you can see this vertical or this horizontal bar right here. Well, this bar is part of the site identity, but you'll notice that I've got site identity and tagline are not checked, which means they should not be showing up. So when I check this, I'll just put the letter G in here for now to demonstrate. It's showing up here right now. When I click display, it will still show up there because it's supposed to be displaying. However, when I click to not display, it goes away here, which is good because that's what I want it to be. I don't want to see any of this. But watch what happens when I publish, and you can save a draft too. It doesn't really matter if I save a draft and then I publish it, which essentially means I like it and I want to put it and make it live for everybody. And it looks good here. Now watch what happens when I go to my homepage. That bar pops back up, even though it clearly says right here that I don't want to display the title. And I can toggle it on and off as much as I want. It'll look good, it'll look fine here, and then when I make it live again, that bar keeps popping up. And I'm not sure why that's happening. It's clearly a bug, it's clearly something that shouldn't be happening, but you need to be aware that there may be certain things that you think you're doing it right, but it's not doing what you want it to do. I suspect that these templates are built by people outside of the company, and they're sort of collected and gone over and vetted a bit by Edublogs before they post them live. But different people developing different templates in different styles and programming them in different ways might lead to some kind of buggy stuff like that with some of the templates. So hopefully it's something minor. I'm still hoping for a fix on this. We'll see what happens. I'll have to live with it for now, but you may run into that yourself. And if you do, you can send me an email and I'll try and help you troubleshoot it. But the answer at the end of the day might be, oh man, yeah, that just looks like a bug. And there's not much we can do about it right now. Ideally, at the end of the day, if you report bugs to the company, eventually somebody goes in and fixes it. So don't let it panic you too much, but do know that I've already found a couple little minor bugs that are annoying and things that I've tried to fix in multiple ways and just couldn't fix. And it might not be you, it might be the website provider. So just be aware of that. I'm getting to the first, second, third blogs. From what I could just tell, I just did a very, very brief overview. Some of them are far too short. I think this class deserves more than 3 minutes of your time when you're building a blog or when you're demonstrating something in the course or you're giving your opinion on something. Resist the urge to just kind of fly through it and get it done. Try to immerse yourself a little bit and think in terms of I'm a media producer. And I'm a media producer and I want to develop my skills in this area. And how am I going to most effectively communicate what's up here with what Mr. Dunbar is either reading and seeing or reading and watching, if it's a video, or reading and watching and listening, or whatever the media is assigned for whichever project it is. Make sure you're always keeping in your mind, this is what I want to get across, and what do I know about my target audience, and how can I represent either through words, typed words, or through other multimedia? How do I reach that person and make it effective? And I can tell you, as every other teacher can, if you put 5 minutes into something, no matter how well read and written you are, if you put 5 minutes into something, it'll look like you put 5 minutes into something. If you put 20 minutes into something, the product you'll get at the end is significantly better. But in 30 minutes, it'll be even better. And I don't need you to write me a 6-page essay, but you should be willing to take the time and be proud of the way you've communicated, any imagery that's gone along with it or any media that's gone along with it. And frankly, you should at this point be able to just copy what you've written, paste it into Word, and check for grammatical errors and spelling errors, because that's something, particularly for an employee or employer, that jumps off the page, absolutely jumps off the page at employers nowadays, is if you can't bother to take the time to check your spelling and grammar, because there's tools that do it for you. The message that sends to a potential employer is that this is a careless person and I don't want a careless person working for me, because if they didn't bother to take the time to represent themselves accurately and effectively and using strong grammar and spelling, they're not likely to give my clients or the company's clients or the company's projects the level of attention to detail and dedication. So it's just something that jumps out, and you might say, well, it's a minor spelling mistake, it's not a big deal. No, you're right. In the grand scheme of things, people make spelling mistakes and grammar mistakes all the time, and we all do. But the point is that if you're putting something out there for an employer, it should represent that you have gone to a lot of work to make sure that everything is perfect and that or as perfect as it can be, and that you've shown dedication and perseverance, and you've done all of the things that you should do in order to represent yourself in the best possible light. And if you didn't bother to spell check, it's not so much that you spell the word incorrectly, it's that you didn't care enough to to even plug it into a grammar and spelling corrector in on the web or in Microsoft Word or something like that. And so it's more of the idea that you were too lazy or didn't care enough to do that, as opposed to the fact that you made a spelling mistake. And I wasn't always a teacher. I was in the industry. I was actually in the advertising industry in the project management end for 7 years. And when we were hiring somebody, I can tell you for sure, if they had a spelling mistake or a grammatical mistake on their resume, it just went to the bottom of the pile. Okay, again, not because I cared if you could spell or not, but because I cared if you cared enough about getting a job to get somebody to proofread your stuff or to plug it into Word to check for errors. Or if you didn't bother to show your resume to anyone else and get them to proofread it for you, I don't want you working for me, because you're clearly just going to make errors and do as little as possible to get done. So fair or not, that is the case at just about every company I've ever worked with or for. And nowadays, actually, there's even a lot of larger companies are going to a process where they digitize every single resume that comes in. They ask for a digital resume, so they ask for a PDF or a Word file or something digital. And what happens is they take all of those resumes and they run them through a special program, a special computer that looks for spelling errors, that looks for grammar errors, that looks for keywords about things that are in your skill set and whatnot, and then compiles sort of a score saying, based on these 3,000 resumes we've received, here's the top 100 based on accuracy and the keywords for things we're looking for. So if you're applying for a communications media job, they might be looking for keywords in your resume like video production experience, or maybe a specific software, like Photoshop or After Effects or something like that. So if your resume is targeted appropriately and uses the words and everything's spelled correctly and it makes sense when you read it, the computer sort of gives it a better score and says, okay, instead of looking at 3,000 resumes when you're hiring for this, you can look at 100, and then the other 2,900 just get junked, which is sad, but this is the way it is, because a lot of companies will have thousands of applicants and they just don't have time to read every resume and interview every person. So they're just going to let the computer do the work based on what they are looking for. And then they'll take the 100 resumes and maybe then they'll start to read them and get a better idea, a little bit more in-depth information. And then they'll make a decision to bring in maybe 10 people to interview based on those 100 resumes. And then from the 10 people they interview, maybe they'll invite 2 people or 3 people back for a second interview or a third interview or whatever. And at the end, they'll hire that one person. So you need to be aware that these are the sort of things that are emerging in the job market and in media production and whatnot. And it's not like the old days. I know I feel old saying that, but it's not like the old days. And you've really got to be prepared, and you've really got to be careful, and you've really got to demonstrate that you've got the skills, that you care enough about things to do them well, and that you're dedicated to constantly improve. And those are the things that employers are looking for. Again, at the end of the day, if you're making motion picture graphics or something, they probably don't care if you're a good speller or not, but they do care that you have attention to detail, because that's just part of what will make you good at that job or make you effective in that position. So sorry, bit of a sidetrack there, but I do believe it is good information, and it's based on experience that I have had and people that I've talked to and whatnot. So I don't want to scare you, but I do want you to prepare. Good people, in my mind, people who are hardworking and friendly and get along with other people well and are willing to learn, they'll make it. They'll always make it. If you can be one thing in the world, be kind, and that'll get you a long way. Be friendly, be kind, treat people the way you want to be treated. You can go a long way on that. If you can add some things to that, like I've got specific skills in an area, if I'm good at working in teams, if I'm if I'm punctual and you start adding things to the I'm kind and treat people well, then you're really employable, right? But my attitude in life have always been nice people do end up doing well. Okay, so if you can be one thing, be kind. If you can be more than one thing and add some more positives to that list, you're going to do well. Ultimately, people who are hiring like to hire people that they like. Hey, if you've got two people that are relatively evenly matched as far as the skills and abilities they have, but you like one of them a lot better than the other, just as a human being, you're going to hire the human being you like, because you have to work with other people, and often you have to work with them in very close quarters. So, you know, even if the person on this side has even better skills but is a complete jerk, you might hire somebody with slightly less skills who's really pleasant to be around because you know you can work with them. Okay, enough of that. I think I've kind of given the feedback that I want to give on sort of the blog setup and whatnot. Are there any questions? Okay, it looks like people have things fairly well in hand. So I'm going to encourage you to continue to give me your best. Actually, give yourself your best. I mean, really, at the end of the day, this is about you and your skills and your interests and what you're going to do with this subject and in your life. So I'm here to support you, but do your best for you, and make sure that you set some goals for yourself. Writing them down is often a good idea. So somebody once told me a goal is not a goal until it's written down. You may agree or disagree with that, but set some goals for yourself so you got something to shoot for. I mentioned it before. I may not have mentioned it while I was recording. I've had some classes added to my schedule, and what that means, unfortunately, is my attention is going to be divided a little bit more across a couple more classes and more students, which means I'm going to need to lean on you. You know, essentially grade 11 and grade 12 class here. I'm gonna need to lean on you a bit to do your best to be independent, to stay on the course calendar that I built, and to use all the resources that we've been provided to do your best moving forward. And if you can do that to help both me, you, and the class out, it would be very much appreciated. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean I don't want you to contact me for help or come to me when you have questions or whatnot. I do want that. But I also just want you to be aware that my time is probably not quite as free as it would have been um, prior to new developments. But I do want to help you. I do want to support you any way I can. But I apologize if you know, my time isn't quite as accessible as it was. Shidi, yeah, absolutely, for sure. I think that's all I've got. All I've got for now. So um, have a nice day, and I think we've got another meeting on Friday. And after that, I'm going to set a schedule where we probably are going to meet 2 times a week, one earlier in the week, one later in the week. And you know, if we need to add sessions, additional sessions after that, certainly we can look at that. So take care, everybody, and best of luck on your projects.